actually, just interject there then, because this is the feature that you've talked about before, and it struck me that, in a way, and you've just said it, by having this system, actually there's a kind of prototypical, well, it might be even a real civic society there. We just haven't noted it before, or it hasn't been described in those terms. But these, rather like you were saying, you need a something between the individual and the state. These actually can do that. They can function like that to a large extent.
Well, what's interesting is the normal notion of civil society, as Ernest uses it and so on, is an extreme form, which is based to a lot of my work on trust. In other words, you have the state, which is there, you have the individual, and you have all these intermediary institutions like schools and universities and clubs and all the rest of it. Now, the Chinese variant of civil society, I'm increasingly realizing, is not quite like that. In other words, clubism and non-governmental organizations and autonomous organizations haven't developed as much as they have in America, particularly, and in Britain. What they have is two variants, which are halfway there. One is what I've been describing. In other words, a local city or a local town are very powerful, and they're elected, and they are a counterbalance. I mean, even if the party says, I mean, there was a case recently in, the beginning of the COVID was an example. The Wuhan local government, when they first heard about the virus, they said, well, let's not worry the central government about this, because we know that if it's a rumor or false or causes an uprising, we will be in deep trouble. So let's just find out what it is, keep quiet for a week or two. And of course, the whole of the American outrage is because they did that. But they were exercising local autonomy before they sent up the problem to the center for 2 weeks, for heaven's sake. And I've seen that often. I mean, I've talked to local government officials, and they say, well, actually, we're doing this. We haven't told them up there. It's an experiment. We'll see how it works. If it works, then we'll tell them about it. If it doesn't, then. So, we saw amazing educational experiment in Shandong, for example, which was just a local experiment by a headmaster who just tried this new educational phenomenal system. And once it worked, he then told about the local educational authorities in the center, and then now it's rolled out all over China. So you have civil society, but it is not distinct from the state. It is halfway integrated into this devolved state organization. The other thing which I've mentioned, which is apparent, is that if you define civil society as people coming together to share interests, hobbies, and doing something together, whether it's playing cricket or putting on a play or whatever it is, then we have it all around you in China, more developed than anywhere in the world, in the form of the internet. I mean, I remember talking to my friend Zilan, I think, about her father, and she said, well, her father's very keen on Go or chess or something. And there's no one in the area who is interested in Go or chess, so he plays online with someone in Sichuan or something. So China is just filled, and all these amazing blog sites in China, of which we put up a number, are filled with interest groups who communicate with each other, who decide to do something together, to go or on a holiday together, or play a game together, or construct something together. And there are millions of them. The Chinese government sometimes quite apprehensive of them because they are very powerful, but They basically mean that you can find like-minded people and form into a virtual community, and maybe turn it into a real community. Now, when you put those two things together, and finally, Sarah and I are reading a wonderful book, which I should have read long ago, and it's the best book that either of us have ever read about China, which is The Travels of a Jesuit monk through China in the 19th century. It's very famous, Abbe Hook.
Right.
And he wrote one travels along the Mongolian border. He learned Mongolian, Manchu, and Chinese, but he also traveled in disguise along that border. And then he wrote a second book, which we're reading in 2 volumes, called The Empire of China. Wonderful. And he describes in Chengdu, where he is, the presence of a very active civil society. That is, there are many, many clubs. There are many, many associations of a social and economic and cultural kind, opera clubs and clubs to do this and that, which I hadn't really realized. Many times when I've been to China recently, I've been, in my lectures, I say, you're doing fine, China, but what you need is civil society.
Yeah.
Once you have that,
Yeah.
you'll be sorted.
There. Yeah.
I now realize that I was talking through the top of my head to a certain extent. They have had it, and they do have it. It's just that it can be tweaked. It's not Tocqueville's American civil society quite as explicitly, but it's very widespread, and it's there once you know what to look for. And I think if you put that together with their innovations in the economic and social organizations of cities and other things like that, and I think they are now sufficiently creative to be having new innovations even in politics. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if suddenly tomorrow they said, well, all right, you're always going on about this democracy thing. We've just devised an app in China which allows every citizen to vote for the premier of China. I mean, we will present you with a list, which is basically what you get in your system. There are some candidates. Here they are, 3 or 4 of them. Where the succession to Xi Jinping is coming up. This is candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, candidate D. Open your app. I hope they're listening. This is a rather good idea. Open your app and choose it.
Yeah.
You have Trump or you have Biden. You have Xi Jinping's successor A or successor B. You choose. None of this wasted time on ballot boxes and so on. Immediate, done next day. You have a say in it. And even, we can take it down a level below the 600 members of the central, or the 9 members of the Politburo, not the Politburo, in the Central Party Committee, the 9 or whoever it is, they are the important people. They will be the next leader. You need to play a part in deciding them. We'll inform you, unlike in the West, where you know nothing about the people you're voting for on the whole. No one sends you any information about them. You just maybe get a leaflet through the door and a knock on the door if you're lucky. That's it. Your member of parliament is up there. We'll educate you. This is candidate A. He went to this school. He did this. His views are this. He'll do that when he's there, and so on. You should spend an hour on each person, do your homework, and then vote. And if you choose these people, they will go into the central controlling party and so on. So you choose, as it were, the night watchman. You are on the selection committee when the night watchmen come along, and you decide you like this one, you don't like that one, you trust this one, you don't trust that one, and you choose them. Of course, as we have no need to remind you, when you choose your 9 or 600 people, It's not like in Cambridge where you're one of 50,000 people choosing your member of parliament. You're one of 50 million people choosing your member of parliament. It's like choosing, every person in Britain voting for one member of parliament, as it were. So, you won't have much direct contact with this guy, but you made the decision. There's nothing, wouldn't surprise me a bit if, after someone's watched this, put this idea out about, and in about, a year or two.
It'll be called the McFarlane Plan.
Yeah,
And,
McFarlane democracy.
yeah.